I can't hear you, Rob, and I couldn't hear your instructions, so I'm just going to ignore them. Chapman, I need more snare in my mix. I am Piz Del Rees. Welcome to the podcast for Flag Plus Football Junior Division, calling the Audible. We're in our new home, FPF Studios. I am joined by League President Robert Campana. Rob, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for joining us.
Well, yeah, I'm actually subbing for the... let's call it Six Simon Dagenet.
There you
could
go.
not be here today.
The Simon Dagenet World Tour is currently going on in Ontario somewhere.
He's shaking hands with babies and kissing women.
For those of you who, because a lot of people watching the FPF Junior podcast don't know who you are, Paulo, so why don't you introduce yourself to the lovely people? I
actually have been playing FPF for, I think this is my 11th season-ish. Let's say 10 seasons. I've played for a lot of different teams, a lot of different divisions. I have actually coached in FPF Junior. I coached the Hurricanes in the inaugural season, and I coached the Bulldogs last season. So I'm fairly familiar with the oldest division, which I believe we call the varsity. Thank you. And I'm here today to give Rob a hand, and we'll talk a lot about some of the topics. So welcome to our new home. For those of you who watched last season at the Sportiera Cage, I want to thank Sportiera for their support, and they're still our official suppliers of FPF jerseys and uniforms. FPF junior teams, you all have Sportiera jerseys, so I hope you're enjoying those. If for those of you who eventually want to move to FPF in the adult league, highly recommend Sportiera jerseys as well. They do a great job, very durable. I have them for all my teams. They're great. Chapman, this is the camera I gotta look at, right? Sorry, again, new studio. We're still adapting.
It's only the third show.
Only the third show.
That's the camera piece.
It
doesn't change
I keep looking
when you sit in the same seat.
You think so?
What is this voice, by the way? Is this?
Oh yeah, man! It's the third show. I'm a little out of it. That's our producer Chapman at Master Control. For those who want to contact the show, if you are streaming live, you can tweet me at PSFPF. We'll try to get to your comments directly. Or if you just wanted to give us a comment about the work that we do with the media, you want to participate, you want to tell us about yourself, your teams, and so on, you can message me at PSFPF, although I won't be a part of the FPF Junior coverage as much as I'd like to be. Simon Dagenet will be doing the coverage, so you can tweet him directly at Dagenet FPF. I believe
there you go. That's it.
That's the one. All right, cool.
Yep.
Got it. So you can tweet him. Simo's very responsive. He's great at handling your concerns, questions, and so on and so forth. So feel free to contact him. Rob, it's the first time we've worked together, I believe, in a podcast.
Besides the Hall of Fame episodes from last winter, but those are formal.
Yeah, very formal. Very formal. This is a good time. For those of you who have not met Rob or don't know this personal bit about him, whenever the music comes on and I can't hear him is when he decides to give me instructions. So I don't know what he was trying to tell me before the show, but I assume it'll be fine. So let's look at the freshman division start. I want to look at some of the unsung heroes on the Musketeers. We look at Devin Wallace, Cam Trickett, and Noah Souls, David Jeffries, Massimo Morfrage, and Caden Shaw, the guys who get the pub, the pub, so to speak.
Yeah.
Talk to me about these other kids.
Yeah, I mean, look, this Musketeers team, Paulo, it's definitely not something that we looked forward to seeing or hoping to see with any of our divisions, such disparity. But right now, the Musketeers are off to a 5-0 start, very strong team. Mm-hmm. As you alluded to, Caden Shaw, Massimo Mufrij, who both made their start as part-timers last year in the winter season. These kids are both excellent players. Caden is lights out as a quarterback. I mean, he could probably keep up with kids in the sophomore division. Really, really good quarterback. But like you said, there's a lot of other players that make up this team. Obviously, they're not 5-0 thanks to just two guys. Devin Wallace has been a stud at receiver for them so far this season. I'd actually say he's probably been the go-to guy for Caden, even above Massimo, who's quite dynamic. It's nice to see guys like David Jeffries, Frida Lugano, Laguno, I should say. I'm sorry. Both participating on the offensive side of the ball. These were two players that played last winter, Paulo. Mm-hmm. David played on the Wolverines. Frida did play with the Musketeers. They both had smaller roles. They're both small kids in stature. But watching them a bit this year and looking at their statistics, they are a little more involved in the offense, and it's nice to see. It's nice to see those players evolve from season to season. As they get older and as they get more experienced.
For sure. And Can the Panthers upset the Musketeers? We have that game in week 8 with playmakers like Emile Gagnon, Massimo Longo, and Zachary Godbois. Their defense. Do you think they can jump enough routes to frustrate Caden Shaw, who we said was an elite quarterback?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough, Paulo. The Panthers are a team filled with really athletic kids. This is a really deep team. I would probably say it's the deepest team in the division. But like any team, even as we see in FPF Senior, it really is a quarterback-driven league. And right now, Caden Shaw...
I also take offense to you calling it senior.
Yeah,
we're not that old,
well,
bro.
you can see some white... I think based on the lighting in the studio, we could see some white hairs on both of us, so we can call ourselves senior now.
It's true.
But that's it. I mean, the Panthers, with players like Massimo Longo, Zachary Gadbois, Emile Gagnon, who have all gotten their hands on the football from the defensive side of the ball this year, they can definitely be the team that will upset the Musketeers, whether it's in Week 8 or likely again in the playoffs, should they meet. On the offensive side of the football, Caleb Perks, 5 touchdowns already, Paulo, early on in the season.
Very impressive.
Big kid. Yeah, he's a big kid. He really commands the middle of the field. He's got a great set of hands. We saw him from early on in the trials. Really happy-go-lucky kid, too. He's fun to watch, but a really good playmaker. The opposite of Caleb Perks. So you remember the Thunder and Lightning combo for the New York Giants a few years back. Phoenix
Ron
Thomas.
Dane and Tiki Barber.
There we go. Who
Our
no one
entire
here will know.
audience,
Exactly.
The parents watching will
Parents
know.
will remember, maybe. But so just like Caleb Perks is big and sturdy and a good, strong kid in the middle of the field, Phoenix Thomas is his opposite. Yeah. Phoenix is a kid who, once you get the ball in his hands in space, he can basically make the entire 6 defenders on the other side of the field miss. Just like electric speed, Paulo, and he's fun to watch. So the two of them combined on the offensive side of the ball, along with Massimo Longo or Kevin DeSaris-Payne, whoever's not playing quarterback for the team, they still haven't really settled in on a full-time quarterback. They can definitely do some damage against these Musketeers. So if I were the Musketeers, I'd be confident, but I wouldn't think that this thing is over just yet.
In the sophomore division, I'll put aside my college football affiliations to talk about the Yellow Jackets. Are they the new top contender, or do the Wildcats still remain the favorite if William Bradford is around?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's a good question, Paulo. I mean, the key thing is now that the Voltigeurs have moved up to the varsity division, which we'll get to a little later, obviously this opens up the field for the rest of the teams. And obviously most people are thinking Wildcats, Yellow Jackets, they're both 3-2. They're currently tied for the division lead. It's tough to say. I mean, the Wildcats, their star quarterback, Will Bradford, has missed a few games. These were games that he was saying he was going to miss from early on in the season due to other sport commitments. But once Will is there, and I assume he will be there for the rest of the season and playoffs, this team changes this team changes very much so, but it really becomes a dynamic squad because Jaden Fournette, Paulo, who you may remember from past seasons,
of course,
who's an excellent football player, he's taken over for Will at quarterback when in his absence. And as great of a football player as Jaden is as a receiver and as a defensive back, I wouldn't say he's a natural quarterback. So what happens is you're taking away arguably the best receiver in all of the sophomore division. You're taking him away from the receiver position.
He can't throw it himself.
Exactly. And you're putting him at quarterback, and obviously there's a bit of a drop-off from Will Bradford. So when the Wildcats don't have their full roster, this offense does change quite a bit. That being said, when their full roster is there, including Noah Smallwood, Dean Fleming has missed some games, Jordy Melnick at the snapper position, the Wildcats are the real deal. That being said, and this is a long-winded answer,
to a very short question.
But the Yellow Jackets with Garner Ross at quarterback, to me, is clearly the best quarterback in the sophomore division right now. So as we know, when the team has the best quarterback in the division, they're always, if not then definitely one of the front runners to compete for the championship.
Can anyone stop Jonathan Yeagerman and Charles Presser, who I talked about in my league-wide article last week?
Which I hope the kids are reading, because Paulo does give shout-outs to the FPF Junior.
Absolutely. It covers league-wide, and that's both FPF Senior and the more exciting, of course, FPF Junior.
Well, Charles Presser, as he goes by Chaz Presser, and John Yeagerman, these kids, Paulo, if you've seen them in stature, I think they're both over 6 feet tall, both super athletic kids. So obviously, when you take Garner Ross throwing the ball to two of the bigger kids in the division, it really makes it tough for anybody to stop these guys. That being said, they're a pretty deep team as well. So I think the Yellow Jackets, behind that John Yeagerman, 314 yards, 10 TDs through 5 games, believe it or not. This is the real deal. But to answer your question, John Yeagerman is definitely one of the top players in the division as well.
If Hurricanes offense can get going, could they make a run and steal one of the top spots going into the playoffs?
Yeah, absolutely. We saw this with the Hurricanes last year. It was their first season in FPF Junior. They started off a little slow, but they really picked up steam as the season went on. But it's funny, Paulo, when you look at the Hurricanes, they usually have two kids that kind of share the quarterback position. You have Marco Gentile, who's a big, tall kid, has perfect mechanics. You see him drop back in the pocket. You say, this kid is, the next Tom Brady.
Nice.
And then you have Nicholas Masella, who's, you could see a natural receiver, a smaller kid, runs around a bit. But when you look at the numbers, Paulo, Nick Masella is currently 12 for 13 on the season. So not a lot of passes thrown, but it's a 92% completion percentage for those who are good at math. Marco Gentile is struggling with a 42% completion percentage. So for Coach Mike Masella, Nicholas's dad, there's a decision to be made as we get later into the season. Do you make a full-time switch to Nick Masella, who's probably not your prototypical usual quarterback, but definitely gives the team the best chance to win right now. So with Nick Masella at quarterback, I could see them upsetting some of the big teams, and especially since Marco Gentile is such a good athlete and such a good wide receiver as well.
And we see sometimes in FPF juniors, guys who are traditional quarterbacks just throw the ball really hard, and guys who are still learning the game may struggle with that. So that might lend itself to the completion percentage.
Absolutely. That's a great point, yeah.
Fighting Irish got their first win of the season, and the offense finally looked good. Are we all aboard the bandwagon from Fighting Irish?
Absolutely. I've been on this bandwagon from week one, Paulo. The problem with the Fighting Irish from the beginning, and Simone's mentioned it a lot in his article, is that they don't really have a clear-cut quarterback. Jonathan Lebenstian-Sharabani has really taken charge of the position, had a really good last game. He missed a few weeks already. But as you can see, based on that absenteeism, you like that word there, Paulo? That's
it's a real word.
Probably not the word I should have used, but so
if you look at my co-hosts and my other podcasts, then absenteeism is the word of the evening, actually.
Perfect. Okay, great. So, I mean, you look at this team and you say, okay, without their starting quarterback, other kids take a chance and it becomes a bit of a quarterback carousel. And they've had some trouble, because of that, establishing some kind of rhythm on offense. But if you look at the depth of this roster from top to bottom, I would say that it's arguably the best team in the sophomore division, despite their 1-4 record. Mm-hmm. So this is a team that now that their quarterback is back in flight and hopefully will be there on a consistent basis, kids can really find their position that they're comfortable with. And I can see this team causing an upset and actually doing some damage in the playoffs.
Evan Shivek, Andrew Backler, Adam Liebling. Talk to me about some of these underrated receivers for Dusters.
The Dusters it's a good bunch. We saw them play the first week of the season. It looked like organized chaos. You just saw a bunch of athletic kids.
Best kind of chaos, really.
Yeah, exactly. A group of athletic kids running around in pink jerseys with purple numbers on them. You weren't sure what was going on. But as these kids have progressed and learned a bit about the flag game, and even for Coach Dan Wood, who's grown accustomed to the rules and play calling, they're really improving week in, week out. And we're starting to see that some of these kids, like you mentioned, Matthew Eiley, Evan Shivik, are making a name for themselves on offense. Defensive side of the ball, Andrew Backler with 10 tackles, Lewis Epstein, 3 interceptions. There's kids that are starting to find their roles now, as opposed to just everybody trying every position and seeing what sticks. And with Adam Malinoff, who's an excellent athlete, really taking the hold of the quarterback position, the Dusters are getting better, and hopefully with a little more organization, they too can upset one of the higher seeds later on in the season.
We have some news for the varsity division as well. You want to touch on that?
Well, yeah, there's absolutely, Paulo. There's a new team that will be joining the original 4, and that is the Voltigeurs, who we just touched upon in the sophomore segment. So these guys start off the season 4-0. Size-wise, athletically, Paulo, organization, Rich Lachance and Kat Pichet are their coaches who did a great job with the Red Devils in the winter, won a championship in sophomore as well. Just across the board, these guys are an elite football team. And you watch them play, and even against teams like, I watched them play against the Yellow Jackets in week 1, the Wildcats a few weeks ago. Against good football teams, they were just so dominant that it wasn't really fun for anyone, including them. So we made the decision to bump them up to varsity. And now the question becomes, well, can these kids compete against kids that are 2-3 years older than them?
Yeah. And
to me, the answer is simple. It's yes. I mean, this is not tackle football, so the kids don't have to worry about getting their head knocked off by someone 3 years older than them. Yeah. But, from a speed standpoint, from football skills, and even from height, if you look at some of these kids on the team, Paulo, Vincent Drolet, for example, he looks like he's about 6'3" or 6'4". These are big, and keep in mind, these are like 13, 14-year-old kids.
They're not finished growing yet.
Yeah, exactly. So from all aspects of the game, I absolutely think the Voltigeurs can be able to keep up in varsity. And in fact, I think they'll do quite well.
They're currently undefeated in Voltigeurs. They've moved up.
Yeah.
Can they keep the streak going playing in a higher division?
Yeah, I think so. I think, look, if you look at the varsity division right now, it's a bit of a crapshoot after the Lions. So the Lions stand at a 5-0 record. They're clearly the cream of the crop. They kind of struggled a bit at the very start of the season. You could see that they had an athletic team, guys who mostly take part in the North Shore Mustangs football program. These guys, North Shore Lions, I'm sure I should say. These guys just needed a few weeks to kind of figure out flag football, and once they did, look out. I mean, it's just basically all systems go. So besides the Lions, and that'll be an interesting matchup later in the season, the Veltziger can step into the varsity division, and I think can absolutely compete with the other three teams in the division.
And you mentioned the Lions. Their offense is strong, but the defense is really where it's at. 5 defensive backs with at least 1 interception after 5 weeks. Is Jake Applebaum the best player in FPF Junior right now?
That's a tough question. There's a few other people that can make that claim. I'm sure Ryan McGrath and a few other guys across the division would probably have a word to say about that. But Jake Applebaum, on offense, 7 touchdowns so far, Paulo. On the defensive side of the ball, 3 INTs, 9 passes defensed. So this guy's got his hands on 12 passes coming from opposing quarterbacks. So Jake Applebaum, to this point, really undeniably one of the top guys, as you mentioned. But Jacob Souls as well, really playing a role. And even quarterback Evan White, who we'll touch upon a little later on the quarterback side of things, as a defensive player, he's been excellent as well. So these Lions kids, you can really tell that this is a group of kids that have been playing football all their lives and are super talented, and they're definitely the lead horse right now.
Who are the Mustangs? We talked about Kobe. You mentioned Kobe White.
No, that was Evan White.
My mistake.
We're not related, as you mentioned in your article.
Yeah. So let's talk about Kobe White, though. Do you think he is the real deal?
Absolutely. I've seen Kobe play a few weeks. I haven't seen as much of the varsity games as I have sophomore and freshman, but I've seen enough from Kobe White to know that this kid is not only a quarterback who's improving week in, week out, but he's a superior athlete. And you saw it early on, even in when we did the evaluations in March, Paulo. I mean, he's a kid that can do it all. On the defensive side of the ball, he's arguably the top player on his team. As quarterback, he's elite. Every time he takes off with the ball, you're guaranteed a 10, 15-yard carry. So Kobe White is the real deal, but he's still got to make some strides as far as reading the field. He's got to learn to, and it seems to be the underlining factor with a lot of quarterbacks, especially in the varsity division, is they have to learn, Paulo, to take what the defense gives them. And you know this better than anybody else. I remember you drilling it into the head of your quarterbacks for the last 2 seasons.
And it's more successful with one quarterback than the
exactly.
other.
Well, that's it.
But yes, absolutely. And it's the hardest thing to learn. And especially when quarterbacks have a strong arm, they want to showcase it.
Yeah.
They want to sling it around. And I understand that. But at times, what's most important is throwing the ball to the open receiver is the easiest thing to do at all times.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, you hear it from Paulo, who's coached two varsity teams in the last few seasons, and he's absolutely right. Sometimes, we're used to playing backyard football, get the ball, air it out 30, 40 yards. That's what's fun, right? I mean, it's not so fun to throw a 5-yard hook.
But it's effective. It's
exactly.
effective, and let the receivers get the yards for you.
Exactly.
Do you think they could beat the Lions if Dylan Hacker, Ben Soroka, and Max Kadenoff are all present?
I think so, absolutely. I mean, look, they played the Lions tough, I believe, twice already this season. Last time the score was a little more lopsided than I'm sure they would like. But the thing with the Mustangs is, again, like we spoke about in the sophomore division with the Wildcats, they have a roster that has been a bit inconsistent with attendance again. But I mean, this is an important factor. If each week you're trying to adapt who plays where, your defense never really gets a chance to gel. Offensively, a quarterback never really gets to kind of build that chemistry with all of his receivers. So should the Mustangs really have their top to bottom roster and Kobe White play the game that he can play? Absolutely, I think they can beat the Lions.
Is Olivier Gauthier the answer to replace Kalen Trepanier? And can anyone stop Ryan McGrath?
Well, two good questions. Yeah. I'm not sure if you remember Kalen Trepanier from the winter.
I absolutely do.
He went through red hair, purple hair, blue hair during the season.
Yeah. So he was effective with whatever color hair.
Exactly.
Very effective.
That's it. So, look, Kalen Trepanier is one of those kids that just anywhere you put him, he's going to dominate. He's that good a football player. He's that good a physical specimen. He was actually still of age to play sophomore, Paulo. But decided to step up and play varsity, was the quarterback of this Cougars team for the first 2 weeks and performed really well. Unfortunately, he broke his leg playing rugby, sadly enough, so he's going to be out for a little while, and we wish him a speedy recovery.
Absolutely.
But ever since Kalen Trepanier, took that back seat and gave Olivier Gauthier a chance to play quarterback, there was some catching up to do on the Cougars' part, because now all of a sudden you're losing arguably your best player. And not to mention Olivier Gauthier was one of his go-to receivers, now is forced into the quarterback position. So, he's growing. I've seen him. I saw him play a couple games, and I saw him compete in the tryouts. He's got a good arm. He's accurate. He's a smart kid. You could see he's got a high football IQ, but he's still got to kind of grow into that quarterback position in FPF Junior, because it is a little different than tackle or anywhere else.
As far spacing as spacing and timing and all that's completely different.
Exactly, Paulo. And I mean, you know that well, right? You've seen enough guys, even at the adult level. We won't call it senior, we'll call it adult. Enough, like you mentioned, super athletic kids. Is there any advice you can give someone like Olivier Gauthier?
Absolutely. And touch on your first point, I've seen guys playing in the FPF Adult League who've played in the NCAA, who've played CIS, who have played, all levels of football, have come in and struggled. Yeah. And it obviously they're talented enough that they had an impact, but it took some time to get there. And the key advice I can give to Olivier Gauthier is don't get frustrated. It will take some time, and learn each week. So each week that you made some progressions, take what you learned and then use that to form your game plan for the following week, to execute your game plan for the following week as well. So and what I always say is, and this is more of a coaching thing too, but the best thing to help developing quarterbacks is not necessarily to have to go with what are called isolation concepts, guys going one-on-one. We're talking varsity football at this point, so this is already fairly high level. I like having flood concepts where quarterbacks get to see 3 reads at a time, 4 reads at a time, because this is where the reads start to become more and more important. This is in the varsity division. So maybe a little bit of advice to the coaching staff as well, and how to handle a growing quarterback. But I think Olivier Gauthier, like you said, smart enough and capable enough that I think no matter what, he'll make the best of the situation he's put in.
Absolutely. Great advice from Paulo. And I guess hopefully their coach is paying attention. He was sitting in this seat about 20 minutes ago, Vinny Guilano, co-hosting with Paulo.
Then he knows. I mean,
exactly.
And Vinny Guilano's the kind of guy
and Corey Walwaski, to be fair, the two coaches together.
And two guys, that's a perfect example, because they're two guys who aren't guys who are naturally gifted quarterbacks, and they had to develop, and both of them became very strong quarterbacks developing in FPF, and the way they did that was exactly what I'm talking about, is not having to make things difficult, find the easiest ways to get guys open. And I couldn't, they're in great hands. I have immense respect for not only the players on the team, but as well Vinny Guilano and Corey Wolowski.
Well said.
But back to your point, back on the hot seat for you, can anyone stop Ryan McGrath?
250 plus yards, 6 touchdowns so far through 5 weeks. He also has picked off 6 opposing QB's passes. Ryan McGrath, well, I'm not sure what else to say about him. If you've watched him play, you can see he's a natural. His older brother Sean actually played FPF for a few years. Was a lights out Division III quarterback a few winters ago. His dad Jerry was the head coach for the Concordia Stingers for many years. So the bloodline is there, and Ryan clearly hasn't broken the mold, because he's really just an elite player. And right now he looks to be the front runner for we don't hand this award out in the FPF Junior, but if there was an two-way Player of the Year award, it looks like it'd be going to him right now.
Will Longhorns find success after their bye week?
It's tough, Paulo. I mean, right now the Longhorns are 0-5. Alex Cahan, who really, really impressed all of us in the evaluations, great quarterback, an athletic kid, got a great arm. You can definitely see that he's played the position before. But as Simon's alluded to in his articles, Alex Cahan got hurt in the first week of the season, and you can see that the Longhorns have kind of had trouble finding their footing ever since then. They gave a few.
I do believe he is back, though.
He is back, so he's playing, and he's played the last few weeks, but limited. David Salanichinos has done an admirable job filling in. But that being said, Alex Cahan 38% completion percentage. David Salanichinos 42.9% passing completion. Add those up together, it's pretty good, but unfortunately we can't do that. So both kids need to improve need to improve their pass completions. What Paulo was alluding to earlier when we were discussing Kobe White. Take what the defense gives you. You guys are both athletic guys. You can move around, buy some time with your feet, and obviously you can make all the throws. But you need to, and I'm sure having a coach like Dave Allen, who's won a championship in FPF Junior with a team that also started off very poorly,
who beat me in a championship
exactly,
game. So
just to make it taste even more sour.
No, not at all. Honestly, I mean, no hard feelings for any of the kids who played on the team and for Coach Allen as well. So, I mean, absolutely, if anyone can figure it out, Coach Allen and his Longhorns.
Exactly. So, but again, these guys need to work on it because Alex Cahan, last time they played the Lions, had a stat line of 5 completions and 28 attempts. That's just not going to get it done, especially against a team like the Lions. Take what they give you, take those underneath completions, move the proverbial chains, and that's how you'll score points. So the Longhorns, I think they absolutely can bounce back. Guys like Eric Flinker, Spencer Fitzpatrick, Brandon Rudy are contributing on both sides of the ball. But they definitely need to take better care of the football, and hopefully they'll improve and start to put some W's up on the in the W column.
Yeah. So for further coverage, for more in terms of recaps and previews for the upcoming week, I suggest strongly you go to flagplusfootball.com if you haven't already. Likely you're finding us after finding Simon Dagenet's article, but Simon Dagenet does write a weekly article for FPF Junior, so I highly recommend you take a look at that. Neither Rob or I will pick games, me being an ex and hopefully future coach in Flag Plus Junior, and Rob being the president of the league. Not quite perhaps not the best two to be on here tonight to be giving you that type of content, but I'm sure Simon will delve into that in his article, and it gives you a reason to watch us as well as a reason to read the article. Do take a look. One of the best things that FPF does over any other league is the coverage that we have. Someone told me last when we had our finals presentation for the adult league, not senior, that we have a better finals presentation than the CIS, Canadian University Football. So I mean, I took the compliment. I don't know if it's quite
and credit
at that
goes
level.
to you. And for those of you obviously who don't know, Paulo and another guy involved with the FPF Senior Adult League, Alex D'Aquila, who we call Eagle. The two of them have really been invaluable as far as adding, excellent content and just making the league fun for not just kids but adults as well. So like Paulo's alluding to, the articles and of course this podcast, which you'll find every week where you're watching it right now, will definitely hopefully add to the experience that you're already having playing FPF Junior this season.
We are sorry for not starting it the first week of the season, but there's still some weeks left, and as well the playoffs and so on and so forth. So you can catch us every week on Wednesdays live. Or you can catch it. You can download us on iTunes, catch us on YouTube. I believe the link is youtube.com/flagplus.
Yeah.
Nice. Remember that the place to find us, to reach us with your feedback, I'm going to drop my Twitter handle again because I don't mind the contact at all, at PeasFPF. But really, Simon Dagenet is the one doing the coverage, so you can reach him directly at DagenetFPF. He'll be here in the studio next week. Actually, I think he's on vacation next week as well. So I might be back here again next week. But after that, I promise Simon Dagenet will return. And then, of course, at Flag Plus is the official Twitter handle for Flag Plus Football, and a place where you can likely reach Rob
Cam
directly.
FPF as well. That's my Twitter handle.
But we're very active. We're very active in our Facebook groups, in our Twitter community, and so on and so forth. So we'll be trying to introduce some other social media aspects to flag football as the season goes on. So welcome again to our new home at Flag Plus Football Studios. We talked a lot about a lot of different topics today, covering all the divisions. Rob, thank you for joining us today. Thank you for giving us your time. Chapman, thank you for all the production work, and thank you all for tuning in.